The reason for changing my school of white pupils for a school for colored pupils is as follows. I had a nice colored girl, now Mrs. Charles Harris, as help in my family, and her intended husband regularly received The Liberator. The girl took the paper from the office and loaned it me. In that, the condition of the colored people, both slaves and free, were truthfully portrayed. The double dealing and manifest deception of the colonization society were faithfully exposed, and the question of immediate emancipation of the millions of slaves in the United States boldly advocated. Having been taught from early childhood the sin of slavery, my sympathies were greatly aroused. Sarah Harris, a respectable young woman and a member of the church, and sister to the before-named intended husband, called often to see her friend Mariah, my family assistant. In some of her calls, I ascertained that she wished to attend my school. I allowed her to enter as one of my pupils. By this act, I gave great offense. Prudence Crandall was a resident of Canterbury. She'd moved here when she was young. Her family had moved here. And she had wanted to become a teacher, and in 1831 had the opportunity to buy this house and become a teacher for young women. Essentially something like a finishing school, but also something like a high school. She was offering higher education for women, the highest education really that was available for women at the time. She began that school in November of 1831, living in the spacious house right on the green. Then in September of 1832, an African-American resident of the area named Sarah Harris asked Crandall if she could join the class. When Sarah Harris came and asked to join the class, Crandall said yes after consulting her Bible, and she knew that she was taking on a very controversial issue. But she was willing to give it a try because she felt, as a white person, that she needed to do something to combat the racism that she was reading about in the pages of The Liberator. Because the free African Americans who were writing for The Liberator and the white abolitionists writing for The Liberator knew that slavery and racism were connected. So Crandall was ready to take part in a movement for change. So she admits Sarah Harris, and then the white parents of Canterbury go crazy. Imagine if you're trying to conduct your education when the very idea that you should be educated is under attack. What would that bring out in you? What are the things that it would make you think about? Would it make you doubt yourself or have more confidence in yourself? In addition to overt acts of violence, such as the cow dung and the rocks through the window, there was the everyday violence that would happen if the students needed to go outside at any point, if they just wanted to take a walk, or if they wanted to, again, lift their respectability by attending church and being pious. They could receive all kinds of catcalls and attacks upon themselves for simply being outside. In what I think is one of the most vile incidents that happened to the students while they were here, one of the students was ill, and Prudence Crandall's sister, Elmira, went to ask the doctor who lived across the street if he would come and help. And he had indicated that he wouldn't normally help, but this seemed to be an emergency. So Elmira went and asked the doctor, and he said, "There's a veterinarian down the road." So the amount of psychic violence, the amount of dehumanization, which so echoed what was happening in slavery, was constant. Prudence Crandall and her African-American students had to have a lot of inner fortitude to go on with a learning community when they were receiving so much flack legally and through the vigilante attacks that were so common. They had gathered that fortitude from the communities in which they were raised. Her African-American students came from well-to-do African-American families in the Northeast, cities like Boston, Providence, New Haven, New York, Philadelphia, where there were some free blacks who had gained some economic stability, who had been able to achieve what we might now call upper middle class status. Those students knew that their communities supported them. But the students, I think, were also motivated by the electrifying atmosphere of getting to learn and getting access to higher learning. I think that for women in those days, to have access to books, to be treated as if they were intellectually capable of handling this material was really an infectious, wondrous thing. Because of course, women had always had minds capable of dealing with this stuff, but they hadn't been denied it. They were hungry for learning. So here is a woman who has not only the fortitude to follow her conscience, but the wherewithal and the personal initiative to take some risks. Prudence Crandall would never get to the right to vote. She dies in 1890. Women don't vote for another 30 years. But Prudence Crandall was a political person. She was taking actions to improve the polis, the area in which we all live. She was taking the actions of a citizen even though she didn't have the full rights of a citizen. It seems patent to me that it is more important than ever that we consider how we are treating all of our citizens equally in the realm of education and making sure that stories like Crandall's let us know that our ability to teach in a multicultural classroom, in a multiracial classroom, the ability of women to go to college, to graduate school, to become the heads of corporations and even the heads of government, that these are hard-won rights that people suffered to make sure that we could be where we are today, and therefore we owe it to them to take it to the next level. We owe it to them to make sure that their stories don't become monuments along a road of failure for us, but that they become high points from which we leapt to even greater heights.